Okay, then. So we'll call to order Wilsonville City Council for a work session on November 2, 2020 at 5:35 p.m. First of all, up we have review of agenda or items on consent. Councilor input on agenda. Ms. Councilor Lehan.
Yes, I would, as we mentioned earlier, I really am concerned that we don't have enough time on a packed agenda this evening to properly hear the DRB call-up, have that hearing. And part of it is, my agenda kept going off, but part of it is that we have the airport issue that is on a tight deadline and probably another executive session after this meeting. But also, I'm very interested in hearing the COVID-19 economic recovery strategy and the site readiness report for Coffee Creek Industrial. And those are both being presented by Jordan Vance, and this is his last meeting. So whatever we're going to pick out of his brain, we need to do it tonight. And those are both very complex issues with a lot in them as well. And I'm just, I don't know if the best thing is to continue the whole thing or hear the staff report and continue the deliberations, continue our deliberations until the 16th. But we would be continuing only to the 16th because we're up on a deadline on that as well. But I think we can't do justice to either the applicant, the neighborhood, or the DRB and all the work that they have put into it, because I haven't had enough time to really grapple with the amount of material that we've got there. Anyway, I would suggest doing one of those two things, either continuing it altogether or continuing it, doing the staff meeting and continuing deliberations.
Yeah, the amount of material pertaining to this issue is quite extensive. There are a full 12 attachments to the public or to the staff report that I think we're obligated to peruse and understand what all process the DRB have gone through in order to do justice to the questions. So I understand your idea. Other members of council, our thoughts on this topic? Councilor Linville?
Yes, Your Honor, I share Councilor Lehan's concerns. I think this is a very important, I think the DRB has done a considerable amount of work in two different public hearings. The volume of material, as you indicated, is really large, and while I've had an opportunity to look at it, I don't feel like I have a good enough grasp at this point of all of the pieces to give this issue the amount of time and attention that it deserves, both on the part of the citizens in Old Town and on behalf of the developer staff and the DRB. So I also would appreciate if we could continue this. I don't necessarily have an opinion about whether we would start the hearing and then continue, but I would feel like I was doing my due diligence if we would continue it. Now, the one thing I do think that we need to consider as we decide this is whether or not we would just go, if it was continued, if we would go strictly by the record as we had planned to do for this meeting, or if we would take any testimony or get clarifications for any of the materials if we were to continue it. But I believe that would be the last opportunity for us, given the timeline, that we would have to make a decision at that next meeting. I believe I'm correct. Is that not correct, Ms. Jacobson?
Yes, that would be the last meeting you would have. The applicant kindly extended the period until the end of the month, and so you just have the one more meeting.
My thinking would be that having the staff report presented at the same meeting where we were going to review and discuss would be an advantage, instead of having the staff report separated by 2 weeks. That discussion would be advantageous in my experience. Certainly we could do it separately, but I feel like it's a little bit awkward. I would be open, and certainly the maker of the motion can decide what they want to make a motion for. That will need to be done at our regular meeting, not in the work session, in order to make that change, and probably would be done at the time that we had a motion to approve the agenda as a modification to the agenda. Other comments, questions? Excuse me, Councilor Akavo.
Sure. I just wondered if staff could give us a sense of what the next meeting's agenda, how full that agenda looks like, because that may weigh into the decision as far as delaying staff report or, splitting it between this meeting and the next.
Well, yeah, we're going to pull that up real quick. Give us just a second. We're going to share that with you, shared screen here in a second.
Adopt the votes.
If available. Can you go to work session real quick so I can look at that? Yeah. Pretty robust work session. Nothing too crazy there. Okay. Keep going down. Mayor's business.
You need an hour. At least.
Yeah, an hour. So minutes, consent is fine. That's quick. No public hearings. One continuing business, and then 1, 2. Okay, we've already briefed them on the arts and culture, so that shouldn't take much. Site readiness, we're talking about tonight. Yeah, I think we can work it in. I think that would probably be the beefiest item. The credit card fee one may not be ready. We talked about that today in our exec team meeting. So some of these I can look at and see if we can maybe push them to the next meeting too. So let me talk to staff. I think definitely I can tell you we can probably push the credit card fee one. And then beyond that, I could talk to staff to see if there's any rush on them. So if that's your concern, I'll work with staff to see if we can mitigate that in some ways.
Yeah, I just thought that information might be helpful for us in deciding what to do and how best to plan, because if the intent is to make sure that we have enough time to, do the due diligence, I wanted to confirm that the window would be there. So Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Other questions? All right, so does that give counselors an idea what they want to do when we get to the meeting then?
Okay.
All right. Let's ask then, any counselor concerns? Seeing none, why don't we jump into our scheduled work session items then, starting with our Town Center Transportation Plan amendments.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and councilors. My name is Kim Reibold. I'm senior planner with the city, and I'm very pleased tonight to bring before you at a public hearing tonight the first implementation action that we are seeking to adopt from the 2019 Town Center Plan. This would be transportation system plan amendments to support projects that were within that plan. So with that, I would like to introduce Koile. He is the city's development engineering manager, and he's going to provide a brief presentation on what these amendments would be and answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Kim. As Kim mentioned, my name is Koile. I'm a development and engineering manager with the city of Wilsonville. I'm co-managing the TSC amendment with Kim from the Planning Division. And tonight we bring it in front of you, the amendment for your discussion. In 2019, you approved and adopted the Town Center Plan, which introduced new street, new bicycle, and new pedestrian connection. As the result of new added facilities, the plan generated a list of transportation improvement projects, which included the cycle track, the new traffic signal, and new type of street cross-section that you have not seen in the current TSD. Let me go here. For your recollection, I show in front of you the slide extracted from the Town Center Plan, showing the location of all the proposed projects, which include the road project, the bicycle pedestrian project, and park area within the area. And then the next slide I have is just the
Hey, Koi.
Then as far as, yes.
Koi, could you hit the slideshow button so that the figures are a little bigger for council? If you go, so that it maximizes the slide on the screen.
Let's see if I...
It should be down at the bottom.
At the bottom. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Oh, it's in percent view.
That make it smaller?
Yeah, I think you need to exit out of presenter view.
What's that magnifying?
End slideshow.
Oh, there we go. And slideshow?
Yeah, right there. Hit that.
Or escape key on your keyboard. It's on here.
There we go.
Under slideshow tab at the top.
Very top.
Slideshow tab.
Yep.
Over. There you go.
And then there's a checkbox in the middle that says use presenter view. Uncheck that. To the right. There you go. Oh, right.
Back. Right.
It says use presenter view.
Right there.
There you go. Now view from current slide on the left.
On the left. Right there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. So.
I'm going to click on it, boy.
That didn't change anything for us.
Didn't change anything?
You got to click on it.
I have to click on it.
From current slide.
Koi, I've got it in council chambers if you'd like me to pull it up instead. Give me just.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can, that'd be great.
Now we have the Brady one. Oh, we Marshall.
All right, so I think,
There we go.
There's the projects.
Is that better?
That's good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. So in front of you is a slide that showing the different projects that introduced in the town center master plan that you approved last year. Just kind of give you an idea of the location of the projects for your information, but I would make it quickly. Kim, can you go to the next slide, please? So this slide, we're showing what can be changing or added to the TSP. We're going to add 15 projects to the higher priority project list, and this will allow us to develop a strategy for the funding strategy for this project in the future. For the project along the Wilsonville corridor, we coordinate closely with ODOT, and we finally get an official support of the improvement along this corridor from ODOT, and that was included in the package with the PC here. I don't know if it's actually included in your packet tonight, but we did receive an official support letter from ODOT. As far as we also added different street cross-section standard, which were not currently in the TSP, and this will include in the new local street cross-section, the cycle track cross-sections, and the buffer bike lane sections. And this will allow the developer or any capital project improvement in the future to develop the plan according to the approved cross-sections. We will updated the bicycle route figure in the TSP, showing the cycle track, the buffer lane, and the multi-use path. We also updated the freight route figure, which will show in Town Center Loop East as a truck route, and then the Town Center Loop West will become a local street in the future. With that, I will open the session for any questions. I give you plenty of time to discuss and ask any question. With us tonight, we also have Scott Manser from DKS. He has been with the city, working with the city staff on both the town center plan and the TSP update here, available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, can I have the screen back?
Yeah.
Everybody, there we go. Council, any questions for staff on this plan? Councilor Linville.
I'm unclear about the circle that is marked on page 7 of 169, and it is the proposed road project that is identified as IN7. And it appears that there's nothing there but a circle. And so I'm wondering what that is.
Yes, this is Scott Manser at DKS Associates. That is the existing intersection of Wilsonville Road and Rebecca, so right in front of the shopping center. And so that is a planned pedestrian bike improvement. I'll be doing a more detailed presentation during the council meeting. They'll have a little bit more information, but in that location, we're actually proposing to remove the traffic signal and replace it with some pedestrian and bicycle improvements, including some flashers to make that a pedestrian bike with a landscape median at that location, because we'll be at the intersection just to the west is the new Park Place extension, where we'll be adding a new traffic signal, and that will be the new main street within the town center.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
it's hard to remember all this detail because it's been a little while since we looked at it, but it's quite a conceptually different setup than we've had for the whole transportation system in the town center area. Other questions? Not seeing any other questions, so maybe we're okay with that at the moment. Oh, Councilor Ackerman.
This is a more general question, but the action that we're looking at tonight really is to adopt these projects into the high priority plan, project list plan, right?
Yes,
that's correct. Yeah, and
yeah.
I'll answer this question, Coy, and you can jump in if you want. The city already has an adopted transportation system plan, but you continually update them as things like Villebois or Frog Pond or Town Center as new projects are determined based on land use changes. And so what we're asking of you today is to amend the transportation system plan. We're amending all of the figures where it would change and add these new roadways or intersections, as well as, you're correct, of amending the project list that would include these higher priority project lists.
And can you give us a little bit more, again, kind of a general question, but a little more definition on high priority? What does that exactly mean?
What does that mean? Yes, a high priority project list, that is the project list that is reasonably expected to be funded within the planning horizon. And that would usually be your 15 to 20 years to the end of the amended TSP.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that kind of broad clarification on what we're doing and what the action is calling for. Thank you.
Oh, high priority, but don't hold your breath yet. Questions? All right, I think that we're good for that topic at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Strategy with our Economic Development Manager, Mr. Vance. So, Mr. Vance, did you save all the good stuff before you were leaving? Is that what you did?
Well, hopefully we can get a start on some of this in the next couple weeks here, but.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I'm here tonight joined by Wilsonville Chamber CEO, Kevin O'Malley, and we're going to talk about some business recovery strategies for this next winter phase. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everyone see this okay?
Looks good.
All right. So we know that the public health crisis with COVID has created an unprecedented economic crisis. Just to bring us back to spring, this was some numbers from the immediate shock we felt to the Portland region. So 14% unemployment in April 2020, around 144,000 jobs lost, and 185,000 people out of work. And we've just found out that there's been a 30% decrease in the number of small businesses open through September 28th, 2020, as compared to the same time in January 2020 before the pandemic hit. Here's an interesting graph shared by the Oregon State Economist that compares Oregon employment loss by recession. So you can see for the 2020 recession, there's a precipitous downward jolt from the initial impact that we felt in spring. And the initial forecast was for around a 21% job loss and 4-year recovery. So according to recent analysis this fall, the picture is a little bit more encouraging. The analysis shows that the actual job loss was around 14%, and the new forecast shows about a 3-year recovery. So you can see this compared to the 2007 recession. The jolt wasn't as sharp initially, and then it was a 7-year recovery for the last recession we were in. Here's some of the actions the city has been taking to respond to the economic crisis. Initially in spring, we provided $400,000 worth of grants, resource assistance. We bought $20,000 of gift cards from our local businesses, really focusing on stabilizing our local businesses from that impact. Throughout the reopening, we've helped with distribution of PPE and facilitating communications and guidelines from the state to help support the reopening effort. And then tonight we want to talk to you about some ideas for this next phase of economic recovery. And again, here's just the budget that we've spent so far. So around $500,000 so far has gone to economic business-related response programs. So $10,000 of utility and rent assistance, $20,000 to purchase gift cards at local businesses that we distributed to vulnerable families in Wilsonville, supporting two populations, both residents and businesses, rent and utility assistance, and then, like I mentioned, $400,000 of relief grants to local operators. So for this next phase of recovery, we have a couple ideas for discussion. So one is the establishment of a Wilsonville Business Recovery Center, which you'll hear more about from Kevin shortly. Additional programs to support outdoor dining, including a potential grant program proposal. Shop local promotions and campaigns, especially throughout the holiday season. And then ongoing business recovery content and webinar series facilitated by the city. So at this point, I'll pass it over to Kevin to talk through a couple of these concepts. Kevin, are you on the line? You might be muted.
Alrighty, thank you. Mr. Mayor, City Council. So the Clackamas County is in the process of working with all chambers of commerce in Clackamas County to create a business recovery center to hopefully stand it up here the last remaining 2 months of the year in preparation for 2021. The concept is, in essence, to use some of the CARES Act money for that purpose. There is a negotiation right now internally within the county to try to create the contracts. So we have a meeting tomorrow with the county to see what that process is and if they've been able to complete that. So that's kind of the focus. In essence, similar to what Washington County has done, the idea of the Business Recovery Center is to proactively go out to the business community and ask, what are your needs? And then to be able to take those needs, legal needs, accounting needs, marketing needs, match them up with a resource in order to help recovery for that business and to propel them forward. In Canby and Wilsonville, we've agreed to share one person out on the street, and we would each have an individual person working to set appointments and working the phones on an outreach. So that's basically, we've made up, each of us as a chamber was to make a proposal to Clackamas County, and for all intents and purposes, they said that looks great, but we have to figure out whether this is a subrecipient or a contractor, and so the legalese is being negotiated right now. There are some options for PPE available because of what the city has done. We haven't seen a big need for that, so we haven't included that in our proposal to date. And that's basically how we're looking at the Business Recovery Center. The chambers are fully ready to go to work. We just need to get some of the contracts signed and prepared. Questions on that? Okie doke. Go ahead, Mr. Yep.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get pictures of my council back so that I know if there's any questions.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Councilor Lehan, yes.
So these are, you said that you don't know if these are going to be contracted or employees of, who would they be employees of, and who would have the oversight?
Okay, so Councilor Lehan, the contracts, they would be an employee of the chamber. The fundamental question right now is that the county is trying to determine on its end whether they can be subcontract arrangements with the individual chambers or if it has to be a subrecipient. That's the hang up right now, is to get beyond that. Otherwise, yes, there will be an employee, it's a slightly more than, it's a $15, $17 an hour person that would be working on, on phones for a very brief amount of period between now and the end of the year on the December 30th.
Okay.
Other questions? Councilor Linville.
I'm sorry, I got kind of booted off there for a minute. So I guess my question is, there are other business recovery centers that are currently in place. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, Councilor, in Washington County, there are set up business recovery centers, 4 of them in the county.
4 of them in Washington County, but none in Clackamas County?
There are none in Clackamas County. Now, the city of Tualatin, where the closest business recovery center in Washington County resides, has been very magnanimous, and we have some businesses who are in Clackamas County who have actually been able to avail themselves legitimately and welcomed by the Washington County Business Recovery Center in Tualatin for some counseling. However, there's lots of other businesses that they've not been able to reach. So there are a couple of retail businesses that were able to be helped.
And are all of those business recovery centers operated by their chambers?
Yes, all 4 in Washington County are being operated by the chamber. The Washington County contracted with the chambers, and the model, John Southgate, who is the Washington County economic, he actually coordinated with Washington County, and he has been contracted as a consultant to help Clackamas County work their way through the success of the Washington County and to fit the needs of Clackamas County.
Okay, so the big question I guess I had is, as I was reading through the documents, it said that all cities in Clackamas County would be able to use this business recovery center, which seemed to me, when Washington County has 4 of them, it seemed unreasonable or it seemed questionable about whether all cities could use one center that would be located in Wilsonville with one kind of a clerical support person. And I was just concerned about that and the volume of work.
Sure.
I say that because in 2 institutions I've been in charge of the staff and the programs for the small business development centers. Mm-hmm. And we had way more than 1 staff member in each of those SBDCs, and they did not try and serve an entire county.
Yeah, and great point, Councilor. In fact, the SBDCs are staff challenge relative to bandwidth right now. So I don't know what document you're referring to, but it was obviously not very clear, because what is happening is Sandy will have a business recovery center. There'll be one covering Estacada and kind of Molalla. There'll be a North Clackamas County, an Oregon City, a Canby, and then Wilsonville. So we are only going to be concerned in Wilsonville with those businesses in Wilsonville, and we will split the difference in the unincorporated county area with the Canby Chamber and ourselves.
So it was in our packet, and it was on page 11 of 169, and it was the 3rd bullet, or the 2nd bullet under number 1, and I think it says in that 2nd sentence, the county seeking to reestablish or stabilize, we will provide complimentary services to all Wilsonville area businesses in Clackamas County. And then I think it goes on to say in there that the Clackamas County provide access to resources for all businesses in Clackamas County, but it didn't say, and that was the third bullet, but it didn't say that there were going to be more than just our Wilsonville one, and that's where my question came from.
Excellent question. Yep.
Any other questions? I assume somewhere one of these centers is also going to be open to West Lynn, and are there neighbors like that?
Yes, there is a discussion as to what happens. So I personally reached out to West Lynn to make sure they were part of this process. What happened was the county was able to determine somewhere late October that there was some CARES Act money. So they said, Chambers, are you interested? And we responded quickly. And what we're trying to do is bring, in a limited time left, to still bring some constructive opportunity for engagement and help solve some recovery challenges.
Okay, good.
All righty.
Another question?
I wanted to just know, I couldn't see in any of the documentation where this would be located. Is there a site for this?
So the assumption is in all cases we have supplied, all the chambers have supplied that they have a physical location and the hours available, conference room, and any other needs relative to photocopying or the like. In a COVID world, we are still under the state guidelines, so we don't know that there will be. We don't expect a lot of face-to-face meetings, so a lot will be done virtual.
Okay.
So my other question is about services provided, financial resources, and relief funding. So this person will be making decisions about relief funding, who gets how much?
No, very, very good question, Councilor. No, the county has just recently inked a $1 million program with MISO. So MISO will be handling all of the financial, anybody that's looking for financing will be referred directly to MISO. To MISO. So our role, with the exception of some pretty straightforward marketing help, the role for everything else is actually matching the Wilsonville business with an expert resource in that category. So once we have a contract, we will make the notification to any business, let's say accounting-wise in Wilsonville. If you're interested, please present what you would charge and what your skill set area is so we can create a resource sheet for the business, at which point then it would be the chamber that would say, you've agreed ABC accounting to help somebody figure out whether their PPE is how to file the paperwork for their PP their loan, their grant money, and then we would simply write that check to that facility on behalf, or to that accounting company, and that's how it would work. So we're not providing any expert advice or anything like that. We're providing either outright resources, here's where you can go, or if there's some funding opportunities.
So since the county is doing it, or the money is coming through the county mostly?
Yes, 100%.
So they would be responsible for any auditing or tracking how things go.
There are contractual obligations as to everything to be done. That we have deliverables to deliver. The first report was going to be November 15th because we're going to start on November 1st, followed by a report on November 30th, followed by a report on December 30th. So the agreement is expected to be very similar to what happened in Washington County.
Councilor Ackerwall.
Thank you, and thanks for sharing this information. I wonder, so this is a service that would, as you've explained, would be available to all Wilsonville businesses that are in Clackamas County. And what is the plan to quickly advertise and get word out to all businesses? Is that something, obviously the chamber can use their, networks and resources and email lists? And then, Jordan, are we also using our business license list, or what's the strategy to get a full representation of all businesses within Wilsonville?
Do you want me to take that first, Counselor?
Yeah, Kevin.
Either one. Yeah.
So the county is willing. The county wants to do a direct mail. We had a meeting of today regarding specifically what businesses would we reach out to on that direct mail piece. We have multiple media sources that are on standby with a press release. Jordan has said that depending on timing and where the city is with its newsletter. So the short answer is we hit every possible free means available. There is some budget in for putting postcards out within the community, and then our particular plan here is that we have a list and we begin making phone calls, immediately. So I can share that, if it's 100 or more employee, that's not where we'll start. We'll start at the other end and work upwards, because in the limited amount of time that necessary, the assumption would be that those businesses need to hear about it first.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, that's Councilor West.
What is the scope of businesses that we're expecting to reach out to or potentially respond? How many?
That is a $64,000 question. If we started November 1st, we had a pretty good handle on it. Until tomorrow, we don't know whether we will be starting. So we, unfortunately, Councilor West, I don't have an answer for you. I know that I can put someone on the phone, they can dial 40 times an hour, reach 3 or 4 people, make a connection, do a quick survey to understand what their needs are. So multiply that as soon as I'm given the okay that we have a contract. And we have said as Chambers, as long as there's an agreement, we're not asking for money up front or anything like that, but we just have to know that we really do have an agreement. There's an expectation that we're going to do, A, and, county wants us to do A, and then there'll be payment following on, because we're not hiring somebody in this economy without knowing that it can be paid for.
Where does the marketing funds and the administrative costs, does that come out of the CARES funding?
Yes.
Or that's, okay. And this may be not able to be answered yet. I'm always cautious that when we do things like this, that our administrative cost is absolutely as low as possible so we can make sure that more dollars get to the need. And so, are we looking at any other options besides, well, I think you already mentioned that. I guess I'll say this. I guess my one thought around direct mail is it's not as effective as it used to be, and it's crazy expensive. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if we've thought about ways to still reach people, because if we can save some of that money, then you're not, right, then that gets us just more money to meet the need of the business. I just thought that, I love the idea, I love everything that's going on. I think that is just a really expensive way to direct market.
Yes, and the proposal that we put in is a proposal so if you're familiar, like the Wilsonville Living magazine that comes out, there is an opportunity, because there are some existing publications, to piggyback on to those publications. So a total delivered postcard would be about 42 cents, which you can't come close to that in any other mechanism. So if we don't have that decision so that we can make the deadline, which our deadline will be November 15th, and we can't really effectively do direct mail because the cost did go substantially up. We have some monies in for some Facebook ads, and then really because this is the time window is closing, simply because of the end of the year and where the county is able to put the resources, we're going to do the best we can to hammer it out and make contacts, fully expecting from the county's expectation that somewhere or another, post our national election that Congress was going to have to figure out some additional CARES Act funding so that starting at the first of the year, we'd at least have the chance to continue some momentum. So I apologize that there's as many unknowns. It's not for a lack of trying and interest to get it out the door, but the federal government's CARES Act regulations for everybody involved in the city, federal government is very precise on how this has to work. So in fairness to the county, they decided they had some money and they wanted to do it. It takes some time to get this all together, and they are highly motivated and working really hard. It just takes more time than anybody would want.
Okay, Mr. Vance, are there additional components to the recovery strategies that you would like us to hear about?
You'll have to hear about the next page. You're going to miss it. You're going to not know. You've got to know about the next page.
One more slide from Kevin here.
So you will begin to see a 18-inch bear around town. He's a flat bear. He's not a live bear. He won't be rampaging the community, but we have a new mascot in our city. He is Wilson C. Bear. The C stands for Chamber, and he is our ambassador to All About Business, to kind of connect our business community and our citizens. We wanted to do something over the holidays, Mr. Mayor and councilors, that was a shop local without just being a shop local that could be some fun. So we today started the 1st of November. It will run through December 24th. Every day we will do a live stream at noon in which we will be, we often do live streams at noon, so if you've seen any of them on our Facebook page, but this is all about Wilson C. Bear. So Wilson C. Bear right now is hiding safely under COVID guidelines at a business in our city. Every day we will give it a clue as to where Wilson is hiding, and then by Friday we will be at that business and we will reveal who has found Wilson by taking a safe picture outside, never having to go in, and will qualify for not only bragging rights but a $50 gift card. Each day, if you watch the clue live or a citizen watches afterwards, the recorded version, they will hear a secret word used during that live stream, in which case they can go online and qualify for a random drawing for a $25 gift card. The $25 gift card and the $50 gift card will come from the winner at a choice of their local Wilsonville business. So our goal is there'll be, during that 3 or 4 minute live stream, the local business will have an opportunity to share a little bit about what's happening. Much like Shop Small, they can do a non-salesy little plug, but we expect that a lot of the businesses will also be trying to do some fun and, most importantly, offer some gratitude and some holiday wishes to the community. So it's a way to get folks to have some fun. It's a way to represent our businesses, and it's a way to give out some gift cards for good. So that is our Where's Wilson C. Bear contest, and we think he will probably be around for a while. You might see him in February looking about where you should be shopping for your Valentine's Day gift. There has been a suggestion by some of the female folk in our community today. They went around in June looking for wedding places. It's kind of taking a life of its own, and we think we could have a lot of fun with it. So we're encouraging folks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. A couple more slides to go through. So this kind of goes to your question, Councilor Ackerval, on the city's marketing abilities. But the city has been maintaining an online directory of all of the local, county, state, federal resources for business operators. And I believe from one of the last reports, it's one of our most popular websites on the city page right now. But myself and the communications team keep that updated weekly. And we have a subscriber list of about 600 local businesses that we send out reoccurring newsletters to, usually 1 to 2 a month. And so, example, we just sent out this morning, there's so many programs that have been swirling around that you hear about every couple of days. But just this morning, it looks like there's a new grant program that both the counties are launching. So a $2 million grant program from Washington County with grants up to $10,000. And then from what I saw, $155,000 in funding from Clackamas for grants up to $2,500. So this could be example content that we would include in a newsletter that would go out to our 600 plus subscribers. And this is a list based on business license, local outreach, grant program, and so forth. Additionally, we've organically partnered with some of our neighboring cities, including Tigard, Sherwood, and Forest Grove, to put together a webinar series. And some of the rationale was that we felt like it'd be a more efficient use of resources, given that we're all using the same providers. And so we're trying to come up with a 6-month webinar series. We've had 2 already. We had one in September focused on business financing, and then we had one in September, and then we had one in October that Wilsonville hosted. It was focused on ways to expand your outdoor dining into winter, and different types of signage, circulation, spacing, design, types of equipment that would offer a safe and comfortable outdoor dining environment for your customers. Looks like we're going to have an entrepreneurship business startup focus in December, and then we'll continue to program the first couple months in 2021. So this brings me to my next topic is local restaurants and how we can continue to support them. We know it's going to be a hard stretch for our local food and beverage operators, given the restrictions and guidelines for indoor dining. So one thing we're doing is the city's going to continue to waive permits, fees, and remove all red tape for outdoor dining requests. So that's something that our planning department is managing. And I put out a survey last week asking our restaurants for input on outdoor dining programs, where their biggest challenges are, where their biggest needs are. And what we heard that local businesses would benefit more from individual parklets at their restaurant location versus participation in a shared pavilion food hall type concept. And they said that their biggest challenge was funding outdoor equipment, such as heaters, tents, seating, planters. And I also spoke with the main property owner that owns the commercial property where Safeway is and also where Fred Meyer is. It felt like the pavilion concept was not viable given the location and status of some of their restaurant operators. They also felt the same way, that individual outdoor dining setups was much more feasible than doing a kind of shared pavilion concept. So we did some research at some neighboring programs. We found that Hillsborough did a similar program. They provided $40,000 in funding, and they found that the cost was about $3,000 to $5,000 to both design and construct individual outdoor dining parklets. And that could include costs for architecture design, for construction of a platform, for the purchase of outdoor heaters, for lamps, for tents, and so on. So one proposal, and this is just a concept, it's not a fully built out program. We still have to figure out how we would administer it, how we would determine program eligibility. But a rough budget could be around $40,000 that would fund 8 to 12 restaurants to expand outdoors for the winter season. And Brian can chime in on this a little bit, but I think there is still money that is reimbursable. I think the state is still reimbursing CARES Act costs through the rest of the year. So I think these costs would be reimbursable from the state.
Yeah, we dug into that a little bit more today in our executive team meeting, and it's kind of a good news, bad news situation. The good news is that we've probably received around $1 million in reimbursements between various reimbursements. Bulk of that has been from the CARES reimbursements that we've been allotted. So we do have that money that was pushed back into our system. We do have some other funding sources we could look at, including, continuation of looking at the TOT funds that we receive. So what I would recommend tonight is if you see something in here, if you like it all, just give us some direction and feedback, and then we can bring back some recommendations to you. I think the way we did it last time made some sense. We had Councilor Linville work with Jordan and Mr. O'Malley to bring back some recommendations. If you like that process, we could replicate that. We don't have to, but that's an option that you could consider. So what I would say is take a look at what's proposed here. If you have any other ideas that you want to throw out there, at this point, I don't think there's any bad ideas in terms of helping local businesses. So we're willing to take some direction here. I did ask Jordan to, confer with his colleagues in other cities, and this is what you see before you tonight. I do like the idea of trying to help out some of our local restaurants to get through this kind of what would be their shoulder season. So at this point, we're willing to take direction and hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Brian. Just two other quick notes is another route to go could be a continuation of the gift card program, which I think was fairly successful. Both programs would help to generate sales and retain our local restaurant operators. A couple ideas, the city could help fund delivery fees to encourage people to order delivery and takeout. And something that is happening in Europe is dining out programs where local municipalities are funding vouchers for 50% of meals for residents dining at local operators. So a couple other ideas to consider. So that concludes the presentation. So we'll just turn it back to council for discussion and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vance. Council, lots of meat and a variety of different threads there. Comments or suggestions or whatnot. Councilor Linville.
Well, I want to thank Jordan and our leadership team for moving on this so quickly. I think it was at our last meeting that I asked if we could maybe begin this, and it was just fortuitous that I think the cities were planning a meeting, and so it worked out so great. And I appreciate that we've been able to get this information back so quickly. I think moving forward with the grant program is a great idea. I would love to see the data that came back from Jordan's survey with our restaurants, and if we could tailor the program to what their needs were, if they were for barriers and tents and heaters, those kinds of things, I think it would be great. I was just trying to do a little calculation and look at $40,000 divided by, I think, Jordan, did you say on there that it was, I'm looking at up to 12 grants. That would be about $3,000 per business, and I think that's a nice number. So if it can help our restaurants, I think that's a grand thing if we can do it.
Other comments? Councilor West.
Question, we're losing kind of that, the weather. We're losing the weather. We're getting into icky Oregon, Portland weather here pretty soon. It's going to be wet and cold. And do you see some of these models and ideas working going into the season? And do we have a history of customers going out to sit in a tent in the cold, rainy Oregon weather, or with water washing through their feet, or like how are they? I know it's going to be a while before we get some sun again. So how are people adjusting to that with COVID and outdoor dining?
It's a great question, and it's unprecedented times, of course. I neglected to mention that there's also a tie-in here with Town Center, with this idea of year-round gathering locations, covered areas. And I think that people are restless in their homes. I think there's a desire just to get out and safely have a beer, meet someone for a bite to eat. And so given our temperate climate, I think if the space is designed safely, comfortably, with ventilation, with covering, I personally think it could be viable.
I think some of it will depend on the individual particulars of the business involved, the restaurant involved. Some of them have space constraints, makes it a little more difficult. One option is for the city to look at an area that maybe is publicly owned property to set something up. So some of our fixed location businesses can maybe cook food, bring it on site, maybe have an anchor tenant. I mean, I've seen things like this in Bend has a really good, it's pretty small. It's tied to an anchor tenant, which is like a tap room, a beer room, and then there's like 4 or 5 food trucks and some local businesses that deliver food. So it can be done, but I think it would require some conversation with the chamber director and Mr. Vance or whoever. I keep regretting that we're losing Jordan here. So, well, from a staff perspective, we'll have to figure out who that's going to be going forward. So we'll see where it ends up. But I think it would require some dialogue with our restaurants to see what their particular needs are, which that would go back to Jordan's survey as well.
I'm hopeful that the fact that Mr. Vance is headed out does not put this whole idea on hold. I think it's time critical as we're entering this rainier season, as has been noted, and we need to move expeditiously to try to get something up and running that restaurants can choose to participate in. And I think that we can do that and recognize that we may have to learn as we go and modify it to see what's most effective. But I don't want us to hold back, waiting to cover every eventuality before we move forward. So I would be very much in favor of pushing forward somehow with the Dine Out program, and I'm certainly open to input from our businesses and from others who are knowledgeable about how to best do that. The fact that Hillsborough has done a program, has kind of standardized a parklet design, sort of a standard. I think it makes sense that if we could have a sort of a package that people could run with, that's a great way to get out of the starting gate, and we see if we have to modify it later on, fine, but let's not just wait too long. So my concern is that we have staff available to work it in Mr. Vance's absence and keep the project moving. At least that's what I would like to see.
Can we get any CARES Act to subcontract Mr. Vance after here for between now and the end of the year? I don't know. Okay, sorry, had to ask.
Yeah, Councilor Ackerval.
Thank you. Yes, I do. This whole time we've been in a hard situation, and I know that our small businesses and our restaurants have been hurting, and they have tried to be creative and come up with ideas, and there's no one solution to this. So it's going to take give from everyone. It's going to take contributions from everyone. And I like the idea of these small grants to try to encourage people, to continue supporting these businesses through the colder weather that we have and sometimes the rainy weather that we have. I'd like to encourage everyone, if you have the means, get a good jacket this year and put it to use. Your drink's going to stay cold outside. Like, look for the positives in this. I also would like to continue to think about and support the gift card program that we had going, because that's a way that all community members can be supporting the restaurants and participate in this, as those gift cards were given out to some of the families that have more acute needs right now in being able to resource their own meals during the last several months. And those needs have continued for some families in our community. So it's a way that we can help support businesses and some of the individual families. And so I would like for us to consider pursuing a variety of different tactics in trying to provide support within the community. Some of it's going to have to be on an individual level too. So I've got my rain jacket and my cozy hat prepped, and I think we all got to do our best.
Yeah. All right. Well, we need to move along before we lose Mr. Vance, to his other topic about Coffee Creek. But Councilor Leanne, did you have a quick? Need to take you off mute before you do.
and it can wait until we hear from Republic Services, but I noticed in their report that that they said that to support our communities and customers, we have purchased meals for our frontline workers from locally owned restaurants twice a week, one breakfast, lunch, and one meal for the family, which workers take home. And then another thing of for $100 every other week for gift cards for locally owned businesses. And it occurred to me, is Republic the only one doing something like that with their employees, or are any of our other large employers having similar programs? And mostly I was wondering if there was a way, rather than us giving away 100% of the money, is there some way we can incentivize, stretch that money by incentivizing our some of our larger employers to participate in this at some level? But this was the first that it had even occurred to me that we had businesses that were doing this, or maybe they're the only one for all I know, but we can ask Republic more about it when they report.
Thank you. All right, before we run too long here, Mr. Vance, do you want to talk about Coffee Creek Industrial?
Yes, that sounds good. I think we have two other consultants joining us for that. All right, I think they're here. All right, Council, I am back. Still Jordan Vance, Economic Development Manager at the city. So an upbeat topic, the Employment Land Site Readiness Toolkit Roadmap. I'm here tonight with Alex Joyce from Cascadia Partners and Jeff Raker, Project Manager at Metro, to provide City Council with an overview of the Site Readiness and Development Report on one of our undeveloped employment land sites in our community, the Coffee Creek Industrial Area. So this roadmap was developed as part of a larger employment land readiness toolkit project that the city participated in. The larger toolkit project was designed to help find tools to move challenged industrial and commercial employment sites within the Metro UGB to development readiness. Funding for this two-year project was provided by a Metro Community Development and Planning grant and matching funds from 20 regional partners, including the City of Wilsonville. This project was managed by the Port of Portland, Metro, and Greater Portland, Inc., and a 20-member project advisory team consisting of 5 regional entities, 2 counties, 13 cities, of which 3 were selected for a customized site readiness study: Forest Grove, Happy Valley, and Wilsonville. So now I'll pass it over to Alex Joyce to walk us through the study.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and thank you. So Alex Joyce with Cascadia Partners, and joining me from Metro is Jeff Raker. He's on the line. Cascadia Partners, our firm, led a team of engineers and real estate finance and infrastructure finance professionals to tackle these longstanding issues of surrounding employment land readiness across the region. The work was divided up into 4 tasks. We're going to spend most of tonight's presentation at least talking about the task 4, the final step. But just so you have a sense of the arc of the project, task 1 was where we looked to our peer cities and our peer states and our neighbor states to figure out what are the best practices that are being pursued by other states and other jurisdictions to solve these land readiness challenges. And we came up with 28 tools, so quite an extensive list of tools, 9 of which, so about a third of which would be legal to implement in the state of Oregon, and about 2/3 of which would require some action, probably state action or regional action, to be implementable. So there's about a third of them that are actionable today, so we have some low-hanging fruit that local jurisdictions can take advantage of. Task 2 is where we invented new tools from scratch. So there's 2 new tools that were targeted at the particularly challenging problems of land assembly and infrastructure development challenges. So where you have employment lands that are
employment areas that are owned by multiple landowners that may or may not have, aligned interests or timing, what tools can help you overcome those things. And then in infrastructure, then lack of infrastructure, modern infrastructure for many employment lands is a major cost hurdle. And so those two particular site readiness challenges were the focus of solving through the development of new tools in Task 2. Task 3 is where we reflected on our tool belt that we already have today in Oregon. So what are the tools that are legal and usable in Oregon today, many of which your city is already using? What modifications to those tools could make them even more impactful? So things like modifications to the allowed sources of revenue for tax increment financed districts, say, for instance. So we cataloged 8 different tools that we have in Oregon and a whole bunch of different changes that could make them more impactful. Task 4 is where we pivoted away from summarizing policy options and implications, and where we actually tried to test out the impact of some of these new policies or tools on 3 sites in the region. And so, Wilsonville was the recipient. In addition, Happy Valley and Forest Grove also received. So 3 only of the many jurisdictions that participated received a deeper dive into an employment land within the jurisdiction. And that's what we'll focus the next couple of slides on here. So this is within the Coffee Creek area. It's a 76-acre site. It has many of the same development challenges that many of these large employment lands within the region face. So a myriad of off-site infrastructure improvements that would be required to actually develop the property: sewer, storm, transportation, a disaggregated set of owners. So, aligning interest across multiple property owners, which can be time-consuming. On this site, the development program, we worked with McKinsey, an engineering group, to pull together a development program for the site. It should be noted that these are based on development programs that were assembled a number of years ago prior to the city's adoption of the form-based code standards. So there's a couple of things about this that may not be compliant, but fortunately we didn't have the budget for the project to update those completely. So we've made a note in that in the roadmap. But there's 1 million+ square feet of assumed development program on this 73-acre site, and then about 1.8 million square feet of parking and circulation area. So it's a pretty large development program, we're assuming. And we also not only understood the development program itself, but quantified the costs associated with developing it, everything from what it would cost to buy the land, and what it would cost to own the land during the development process, those pre-development costs. We quantified each of the site readiness costs. So, all of the infrastructure improvements on and off site that would need to be made in order to get the site just ready to develop before even the building development could happen. And then we quantified the costs associated with building the buildings. And so there's, over about $10 million in on and off site costs, and there's about $250 million in building construction costs. So it's a pretty major project. And when you add it all up, there's a financial gap of about $62 million on this project. So project on day one doesn't start above water, it starts below water. And this is not unique to Wilsonville. These kinds of challenges and infeasible starting points are precisely why we did this, why the port and Metro and GPI initiated this project, because this is indicative of a lot of employment lands and the challenges they face to get developed.
So, gentlemen, I need to ask if you can move along more quickly, or we're not going to be able to finish this here in the time we have available.
Absolutely. So I will do that. So I will skip a couple slides here. So we tested a variety of different tools. The upshot of the testing here, you can see from left to right, we had out of the starting gate, we're making a negative return on our investment. We tested a lot of different tools in isolation. And like most things in life, there's no silver bullets. You have to combine different tools in order to have meaningful impact and get these sites ready to go. We also took a look, and Jeff is available to talk about any of the data here, but we took a look at some of the demographic and transportation access and access to opportunity statistics provided by data from Metro to try and get a sense of, you know, is this site in an area that is rapidly changing? Is it well connected to the workforce of the region? Does it have any issues that the city ought to be aware of that may have other policy implications? And we provided a starting point for the city to consider some of those equity-related challenges within the context of employment lands. So to get right to the recommendations, you know, and the city's already taken action on some of these, but considering structuring the allowances of urban renewal to be a reimbursement tool. So I know that you've adopted the WIN program, and large offsite transportation costs are a major hurdle for these sites, and so any tools that can be targeted at that particular issue will have significant benefit. So, you know, considering building on the work that we've done here to try and get action and get movement on that site would be some of the general recommendations, implementing some SDC financing programs that are market feasible, providing staff assistance for the private landowners to form local improvement districts to help pay for some of the infrastructure, and generally participate in the coalition necessary to get state action to grow the toolbox that economic development practitioners have. So specific items here tonight, so recommending staff action, formation of a cross-departmental team to identify the next steps for this site in particular, building on this work. And then as I understand it, at the next council meeting, there will be an acceptance of this roadmap. It's not an adoption or anything, it's just an acceptance of it, which was a requirement of the grant application. That is all I have. Any questions?
All right, well, thank you so much. Jordan, any other comments here?
You're on mute, Jordan.
Sorry about that. Nothing else to add, Mayor. There's a lot of meat here, so I just wanted to give some time for questions and discussion.
Yeah, there is a lot of meat here, you know, and I'm also thinking, not mentioned, but the millions of dollars that we're putting in infrastructure, building the roadway and putting some of the infrastructure in the ground up there as hopefully getting us closer. It's a little daunting to see the magnitude of the gap in infrastructure costs, even after we're putting that investment in there already. So, council, questions? Councilor West.
Jordan, I'm sorry to get a call. Check back in with you again this afternoon to, you know, ready for council, and thank you for taking the time to help me process some of this. I kind of went down a rabbit hole a little bit as I dove into this for much of the day. Can you answer what is the most accessible industrial zoning in the city for businesses to utilize and to get off the ground and to start creating jobs and adding to our tax base? What's the most accessible industrial zoning in the city?
What do you mean by accessible?
Easiest to use, get off the ground, and get their business going. What zoning is most accessible?
The zoning between our regular industrial zoning and the Coffee Creek industrial zoning aren't so different. My understanding that the key difference is Coffee Creek is planned development industrial, but it's RSIA, so it's regionally significant industrial area. And I believe it has a lower threshold for the amount of commercial use for each development is the main distinction between the two. Both codes are fairly flexible in terms of allowing a wide use of a wide range of uses from manufacturing to distribution, warehouse, and office.
We also have our form-based industrial code, which gives another allowance for developers that want to go a little bit quicker. It's more of an administrative review. So we have a lot of different tools.
Mm-hmm. So I just getting a little feedback that the industrial plan development that mirrors more what's up and down 95th, there's a high demand for that, and it matches what is already in that area. And this campus-style, high-tech office buildings seems to be going away from market trends a little bit. I think more people are going to be working from home. That is a high industrial area with a lot of huge trucks. I don't think that there's a high demand for this extra campus-like feel for employees in that area. And it also makes the cost of development, it seems like, so much higher and is maybe a deterrent. It seems to me that they're, from talking to the businesses that tend to invest in this area, in this type of product, and businesses are finding some hurdles, not only with the form-based code, but also with how it is being planned out right now in that campus type of style, where warehouse and industrial, there's such a strong demand for that, it would be all sold tomorrow, and then they could nicely develop that area out and it would match what's already there. If the markets are telling us one thing and we're trying to pigeonhole and put a square peg in a round hole and do something else, I don't know if we need all of the enticements.
We're down to 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. I don't know if we need all the enticements. I'm concerned about all the enticements and government intervention and subsidies and all of that when the markets are telling us that there's an easy fix here and we wouldn't have to have those types of interventions.
Counselor, if I understand you correctly, are you saying the easy fix would be to alter the form-based code zoning in Coffee Creek?
Well, I had one investor tell me that our current use of the form-based code is a death nail to them to try to develop out there. There's property right there. There's 20 acres and another 10 for sale that is not moving based on how it would have to be developed out, and that current form-based code has been is a huge roadblock to them. And so if we were able to develop that corner of Coffee Creek out to mirror more like what's going on 95th, then we wouldn't have to do this array or smorgasbord of government interventions and make different things. And so I just am kind of wondering if the need or the purpose of these interventions. And so that's, I guess,
so
can I clarify something real quick?
It's not mandatory.
It's an option.
Use form-based code.
Right, I'm aware of that, but the way our code is working, these developers have pulled on and said, we're not investing, we're not putting our industrial there with the way this is set up right now. That's just the feedback I got today. And I'm aware that they don't have to use the form-based code, but they're finding it cumbersome. And I'm told that the warehouses and the retail is done, the office space is done, and the over-designed aspect of this piece is really making it unaffordable. And they can't adhere to the design standards that we're seeing there. And we're not, and the market's telling us one thing, but it's like we're trying to build something else or some different thing that we think is great, but the market isn't really affording us that opportunity here. And so just on that information alone that I'm getting from the guys that invest the money and make these business decisions, I'm just concerned that this array of interventions that we're presented with today is going down a path that we don't need to go down right now. I'm not convinced that is something that we should be doing. Maybe we should look at making it this a little more easier to develop that works for those business guys that are developing those the industrial plan development over there. So that's just, as I looked into this today, it brought up a ton of questions for me. So
I guess I'm not tracking on what government interventions we're talking about here, because I don't know of any significant industrial lands that are being developed without some sort of government incentive or interventions, as we're talking about here. Urban renewal is one of the key tools that we have to open up these lands, to put in infrastructure. I don't know of any developers, if they're knocking on the door to come in and develop without any government interventions, I would love to talk to them. I just haven't heard from any of them, and I don't think Jordan has either. I think we have to plan the infrastructure to get them. That's the incentive for them to invest private dollars, is for us to put in key infrastructure. So are you talking about urban renewal, or are you talking about form-based code?
No, I'm not. Well, I think there's more than one issue here. I think you bring basics like sewer and water there, and then allow the industrial plan development to happen, and not so much like a campus park-like feel with all those additional roads and higher development costs. I think that you're going to have more businesses interested in putting industrial plan development there. Not that we don't have to use some of those mechanisms, like urban renewal can be very effective, especially for industrial. I get that, I understand that. But the way it's planned right now and being proposed around Garden Acres Road, it's businesses don't want to touch it, and investors aren't going to want to touch it, and and the market's not interested in it. And I think it should just look and mirror a lot more like what's already there on 95th, which businesses can build quicker and easier, they can get it up faster, it still provides living wage jobs, and it's still an awesome tax base for the city. And the way it's being proposed right now, and that, like even in that picture with the office spaces and kind of cruise way-like, I think is not what the market is desiring right now.
Well, with that, we're out of time, and nobody else gets a question, so we're going to have to discuss this next time when we come to the meeting. Perhaps staff can have some response or context to bring to the discussion next time, and address some of those concerns, and maybe we can better understand some of the detail and the assumptions that are or are not surrounding the way that we're positioning this Coffee Creek area.
Yeah, it would be good if we could get those comments written so that we could respond to them. I'm not sure which developers you're talking to, Councilor West, but if you want to provide that information to us, we do have professional staff that will be willing to, we have those conversations on the daily with folks. We know that some parts of our code are more challenging than others, but all in all, as I've talked to business owners, they know that we have very high standards. They don't like going through it and paying the money, but they also have complimented the city for being consistent over the years and understanding that we know that we're going to hold the next development to the same standards, so it's protecting their investment as well. So some of it is what the economy, what the business cycle wants, and then there's a lot of it also about what Wilsonville wants. So somewhere in between, there's probably a good happy medium.
I agree. I'd be more than happy to put together an email and further dialogue. I tried to have a decent conversation with Jordan today, but it got cut short. And I will continue to pose those questions and hopefully bring that context to the next meeting.
And I would encourage everybody on council to send any questions, comments, or concerns in advance so that we can prepare some written responses to those concerns. That would be helpful for us. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Mr. Vance, if this is the last time we're going to see you here on a professional capacity, I don't know if it is, but thank you for your work, and I'm hopeful that you have success wherever you go. Thank you for the work that you've done here with Wilsonville. I think that we've made significant steps, partly due to the efforts and the knowledge that you've brought to the table. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Mayor, and I think you'll see me back in 2 weeks, but thank you for this.
All right, not yet, okay. With that, we're out of time, and so you need, about 7 minutes? So we need to come back at about 7:10 then, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right, Council, thank you so much. I'll call us out of work session at 7:03, and we'll look for everybody back at about 7:10.